Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this Graitec UK Advanced Steel webinar, where today we're going to be looking at point clouds with Advanced Steel with me, Rob Merriman. As always, could someone just confirm that you can see my screen okay and you can hear me loud and clear? Okay, thank you, Marcus. Thank you for confirming. Okay, we will crack straight into it. I can see most of you are here this morning, and most of you have come to most of the webinars anyway, so you will have seen this and you know all about me, probably more than I do. But for those, there are a few names I don't recognize here, so we will go through. So a little bit about me before we start. So I have 12 years experience in the construction industry. The first 8 of that was as a structural steelwork and architectural metalwork draftsman using Advanced Steel. During that time, I worked in 2 subcontract drawing offices, so that allowed me to work with loads of different fabricators, all wanting things done slightly differently, working on loads of different projects. So it gave me a good overview of the whole sort of steelwork sectors. I currently work as an application engineer for Graitec in the UK. So take that first-hand experience, do training for you guys, tech support, customization, implementation, predominantly focused on Advanced Steel, but with Advanced Steel being added to the AEC collection, we do look at tips and tricks for you guys with AutoCAD, Revit, Navisworks, obviously what we're touching on today, which is Recap, and we do look at Fusion 360 as well. So a little bit about Graitec. We are 30 years old. We operate over 48 offices in 11 countries. We are headquartered out in France. We are becoming one of the largest Autodesk partners worldwide. Our focus is on our technical staff and the technical work we do. We do have our own research and development center out in Romania. So those guys work to produce the PowerPacks and programs like Advanced Design. And we are here to help and work with you guys, our customers. So over 3,500 training courses delivered per year worldwide. On our technical support feedback, we're at 98% excellent or good feedback on that tech support. So why Graitec? Our sort of 4 key pillars are create, simulate, fabricate, and manage. That's what we've broken down sort of all of our typical projects down into. So create is using the Autodesk products and enhancing them with the Graitec PowerPacks. Simulate is taking that real-world model and making sure that, taking that BIM model and actually making sure it will work in a real-world environment. So we do have our own structural analysis package called Advanced Design. Fabricate is then obviously taking the BIM model actually through to the finished product and site delivery. So we have Advanced Workshop, which can help look after and run your workshop, and Armor Plus, which is for your site deliveries. And obviously, most of us here are Advanced Steel users, so Advanced Steel sits in Fabricate and Create. And then the final pillar is Manage. So we're producing data, we're producing documentation that needs to be sent to our clients and our customers and main contractors. That's usually done with an external common data environment. If you're working for 4 or 5 main contractors at the same time, different main contractors, they're probably going to use 4 or 5 different common data environments, which all work in a similar way, but everything might be in a different place and the workflow is slightly different. We have Graitec OpenTree that can look after all of that kind of stuff for you. We touched on it this morning, just to highlight the learning materials that you get from Graitec. So this webinar is going to be recorded. It is being recorded. What we do with our recorded webinars is we put them up onto what we call our content portal. So every webinar that we've run over the last 4.5 years is on our content portal. So that is 50 plus webinars that you can watch on demand. We do, myself and Alec, specifically write Advanced Steel blogs. So we do any tips and tricks that we find, or things that we can explore, and things that we discover, or things that you guys ask us regularly on tech support. We will then write as a blog to try and put that information out there. And you can subscribe. We won't spam you. We usually do 1 or 2 a month between us. If you're a Graitec customer, so if you have your technical support and PowerPacks and things like that with us, and your licenses, then we do have a dedicated portal called Graitec Advantage. It is where you can download your Graitec products. It's where we do have our Graitec forums, and it's where we put our Graitec sort of global content. So every year for the last 3 years, we've been running our BIM Up conference, which is our 3-day digital conference. If you missed any of that, you can watch all the sessions on demand in the Graitec Advantage portal. Every year in the UK, we will run an Advanced Steel user group. The last 2 years, because of COVID, they have been online events. You can watch those on demand. Hopefully, fingers crossed, next year we'll be able to do it as a physical event. So all that can be found on the Advantage site. And then obviously where you found this webinar is our Graitec events page. So as we release these, and we release them a new round of events every quarter, they will go onto our Graitec events page. The PowerPack, if you don't already have it installed, you don't know what it is, it's Graitec's add-on for Advanced Steel. So I'm going to run through what we have added to Advanced Steel. In the UK, if you are supported and maintained customer, it's part of your support and maintenance contract. If you're outside of the UK, please speak to your local Graitec office just to see exactly where you stand with them. We break the PowerPack, need to update this really, into 6 key areas. So we've got create macros such as a structure designer. So it will create one whole structure for you with the cold rolled, with the cladding, not with the joints, but with the structural elements. We've then got our create macros. So we have our own PowerPack connection vault, and that will add in 25 plus new connections. We then have just our individual elements, so things like our spiral polyline or spiral beam creator. We do have a folded plate extender, which I've just been speaking to someone about earlier on this morning. So it means you can create folded plates on the edges of plates without having to actually change your UCS. We then have our BIM import and export tools. So if you need to export your model or individual parts to STEP IGES for laser cutting, or you need to send to someone using Inventor, you can do that with one button. We can explode the drawings and dimensions. We've got some Kingspan CAM tools just for their mezzanine floor beams currently. And then the bit that most people don't see is the additional data that we put in with the PowerPack. So we have updated some cold roll suppliers, such as Stedman's, some Kingspan SBS sections, steel sections. We've added a whole new supplier called Thomas Panels via the PowerPack. There's some grating sections in there. There's lots of screws and anchors in there. So that's all part of the PowerPack. What isn't shown on this page is what we call PowerPack Premium. So that's the next level of PowerPack. That is the Graitec stairs and railings tools. If you don't know about it or you want to see what they can do, just drop my email address is on this handout. Just drop me an email. We can set up a demonstration, or I can send you some information on that. Okay, so today we're going to be looking at Advanced Steel and point clouds. This is a sort of introductory session. I did run it in the user group, not this year gone 2021, it was 2020. So for the user group, you've probably seen most of this anyway. But we will look at what is a point cloud, why we actually use point clouds, how we as Advanced Steel users can then start to manipulate point clouds, what we can actually do with that point cloud information, and we'll look at Recap Pro. And then once we've manipulated that point cloud to trim out what we don't want, we can then bring it into Advanced Steel, and we'll run through how we can work with that. And then we'll actually look at how we can take what AutoCAD creates from the point cloud data and how we can convert that into Advanced Steel objects. So we'll go onto what a point cloud is. What I would like to do, I want to launch a quick poll for you guys. I would like to sort of know, do you know what point clouds are? Are you using them? If you're running multiple screens, you'll just need to drag that dialog onto your main screen. It won't let you click on it if it's on a second screen, for example. So we're up to 40% of people voted. I'll just let it run for another 30 seconds or so. We're up to 56% of people voted. So if you haven't voted, it would be helpful for us to see where everyone sort of sits and what people understand before we get into today's webinar. Okay, we'll close the poll there. So 50% know what a point cloud is and are working with them. 33% know what a point cloud is but don't really work with them, and then 17% don't know what a point cloud is. So a bit of a mix with everyone. So a point cloud is a 3D laser scan to capture the dimensions and shapes of a physical object. These days it's used more and more when we're working with existing buildings. And how the point clouds work is a laser will fire out, or the machine will fire out a laser. When it hits something, it records the X, Y, and Z coordinates of that single point that it finds. And then it's collecting thousands and thousands of points. So when all of these points are collated together, you get a scan of the whole building. There's a great example. Let's say we were having to put a platform in and around that steelwork. There's so much going on there. No matter how many physical dimensions are taken, something might be missed, and that's where a point cloud, as well as the physical dimensions, if they are being taken, can just bring all of that information together. So why could we use a point cloud? So like we just looked at in that photo, for more complex buildings or existing steelwork, the point cloud will give you a more accurate representation of the building. The level of accuracy and precision is or can be far greater than traditional methods. I'm still not saying that traditional methods are not useful. It does allow us to get to those hard to reach areas of a project, and sometimes we can do it quicker than traditional methods. So the only thing with the point cloud, though, is everything that it finds, it will show in that scan. So if you were scanning your kitchen, for example, and your countertops were covered in things that you use in the kitchen, the scan will pick up the kettle, the posters on the walls, the loaf of bread that you've got left out. When we're actually modeling in our 3D environment, do we need all of that information? We really only want to try and bring in the data that's relevant to us, just to keep those file sizes down. If we bring in everything, then it's going to slow us down. The person that you've employed, whether it's either someone in the office or an external company, the company that are doing this, or the people that are doing the scanning for you, how do they know what you want or don't want? That's where Recap Pro comes in. So if you have an AC collection, Recap Pro is included as part of the collection. It allows us to bring all that scan data together. So what you have to remember is that scanner will scan in all directions what it finds, but it obviously can't scan through walls because the laser comes back. So if we were scanning a house, you might scan a couple of points in a room to get a view from each end of the room. You might then scan in the doorway, then move the scan to the hallway. Recap Pro then allows you to bring all these scans together so that you can see the whole picture. It allows users to then set the origin of a floor, because when we bring this into Advanced Steel, we want our X, Y, and Z set correctly. We can align the scan UCS to anything from within the scan. So if we know we've got a wall at a right angle and it's at the level we want, we can set our XYZ to that corner point of the room. And then we can look to remove points to create regions, floors, walls. We can start grouping things together just to allow us to handle the data easier when we get into the advanced steel environment. So we're going to have a little look at this in action. Okay, so this is Autodesk Recap Pro. I'm going to open up an existing project. So we'll open up the sample project and then we'll just run through the different options within here. So in the right hand side you have your account information. In the left hand side you obviously have your open, save, publish, import, register views, your preferences, your settings. Then you have the display settings. So this will show you the different elevations of your points. We've got the intensity of the points, the normal mode, and the scan location. If we look at the scan locations, we can go through obviously the points. There aren't any walls or anything like that. You can see in here we have, these are our actual scans. We'll come back and look at that in a second. Then we have the different lighting modes, the different point displays, the different views, and then the background color. Then we have the navigate. So we've got our pan, orbit, look as you would. So look is our control. We can have a little play around there. We then have our view cube, same as we do inside AutoCAD and Advanced Steel. So it's fairly similar with all Autodesk products. They are all a variation on a theme. We do then have the project navigation, so you can see your scan locations in here. We can turn them on and off. We're going to add some extra things in here in a little bit. And then we've got our selection window. We can do planes. We can then measure distances. We can do angles, faces, sort our limit box. So what we have in here is a scan of a workshop. Now the scan of the workshop has done everything, including all the workbenches, including all the machinery. You can see we've got the walls in there. But let's say we just want the walls and things like that. We also have these dead spots in here. That's obviously where the scanner has been positioned. So we've only done 2 scans of this building. So we will get some dead spots in here, and you can see there's some dead spots in there behind the machinery and behind the beams. So the more scans that are done, the better. You won't pick any of these dead spots. If we click on this, that is going actually into the scanner. And that is what the scan looked like when we did the scan. So if we go back to our scan, what we then want to look at doing is maybe selecting the walls. So what we can do is we can So what we need to do is we can select, for example, a plane, and let's do the floor to begin with. So we can click all the points on the floor that we want. we'll just pick as many as possible. And then we can set the depth here, so we'll say within 50 millimeters, and then we'll hit enter. That will select everything that it was within 50 millimeters of that point. So now what we can do is we can create a new region, and we can call that floor. So that's all of those points selected in the floor. Now if we come into our project navigator, we can see in here that we have the floor and we have unassigned points. So I can turn off the unassigned points, and then I'm left with just the floor. So if we turn back on the unassigned points, we can maybe turn off the floor, and then what we can do is we can come back into here and we can do this wall. So we can do another plane. And that will then pick that wall, so we can do a new region, and we can call that XD, we'll call it just 4-1. Then we can try and do another one. We'll do a plane in there. What we've got there is we've got the slice of the two walls. So we can do things like a selection window here, and then we can say unassign, and that's just tidied those up. So if we turn the floor on, we're now starting to build a picture of our building, and then we can work on the items that we don't want. So it's best to assign regions, and then we can work from there. Okay, so that is an introduction to what you can do with Recap Pro. If it's something that you guys are not familiar with at all, it is something we do run a one-day training course on. So if you do want more information, just obviously you've got my contact information, just reach out to us. So we're now going to look at point clouds and advanced steel for the second part of the webinar. So point clouds we attach to the model the same way that we will do an XREF and things like that. So it's no different than the way some of you guys are working currently. There is then a dedicated point cloud manager, and there are some good little functions in there. Now, the functions that you see with the Point Cloud Manager, they are dedicated AutoCAD tools. Advanced Steel is built on top of AutoCAD, so we can take advantage of those tools. But we can crop, we can select, and then we can view the point cloud information. We can also, which is quite clever, we can actually then start to extract geometry from the point cloud. So we can actually convert the point clouds into lines. We can find intersections. We can actually, the system will find the tube and the pipe intersections automatically. Once we've got those lines, then we can go back to doing what we do normally within Advanced Steel, and we can look to convert those lines into Advanced Steel objects so we can start modeling straight away. Okay, so we're going to look at a practical example. This is our Bradford office. So we're just going to go to a top view. We don't need that whole, too far. We don't need that whole scan. We are actually going to be working on our little area in here. So we're going to put some new steelwork in here. So we're just going to call this balcony area. So if we come into here, we can turn off our unassigned points, so we've got just our balcony area. So we can start to tidy this up because we don't need any of that. So we can unassign those from the region. We don't need any of the cars. And in fact, because we're doing the balcony, we don't actually need any of this. So we'll just tidy those shrubs are going to cause me some problems. So again, that's now just tidied up my building. And then what we can do is select our points, and then we can choose our export, and we will just call this balcony area. And that will create our export. So again, it's not taken me long. It's a big project this, so it might take a while to export or extract. It's not going to take too long. But rather than doing the whole project, because that is obviously an entire building, the car park, the scan will pick up everything around it. That's what our surveyor has given us. We just want to export the one particular area we're going to be working on. We can always create more regions and bring them in, a bit like XREF in different files. We can bring in different file formats. So we'll flip to our Advanced Steel. Okay, so we'll start a new Advanced Steel template. And then we'll So you just save the file so you don't lose anything. Okay, and then we simply just go to attach a file, it'll go to our point cloud, and then we have our Bradford office balcony area. So we can insert that, we'll insert it at 0, 0, 0, and then there is our point cloud. So we've only brought in what we need. If we select the point cloud, we can obviously adjust our point size, we can adjust the scan color, so we can do the elevation, we can do the scan colors, we can look at the transparency, we can orbit around, then we have the clipping, so we can do clipping on the point cloud. And here's the point, so we're going to do the extract. We also have a point cloud manager, so you can see in here that I can turn on and off the regions that we've created, or I can turn on and off the whole scan. So if we want to, say, trace around this, we could just come in here, look at our snap points, come into the snaps, and if we look at the 3D object tab, if I turn those on, I've already got my point cloud snap points on, and then we can draw some AutoCAD lines, and you can see it's going to start picking up. So if we go out here, we could start drawing around our point cloud. It's obviously going to pick up lots of points, so we can do that. We could do a 3-point arc to somewhere about there, and then to somewhere about there. But those lines could be drawn anywhere. You can see the lines that we've got in here. They're not locked to any points. They're all over the place. So we'll just delete those lines. You can see that line in there like is not going to any points. So what we can do on your Advanced Steel Tool Palette, we do have the Turn 2D Snaps on and off. So if I now do that and we go back, we can now zoom in and pick our point. Obviously we have lots of points, therefore we're going to get lots of points picking up on and then we can do our 3-point arc. Oh, I've lost my mouse. Somewhere in there to about there, and then this time we'll get the points on the ground. So we'll just turn those off, and we'll turn my snap settings back. The other thing that we can do is if I select the point cloud, I have the option to do a section. So we're going to section from the bottom, and then we'll go to a right view, and if we click that section, we can then start to position our section through the balcony. So we'll position it about there, and then I can go from a plane and I can turn it into a slice. So we have a top extents and we have a bottom extents. So what we want to do is we want to try and get the actual balcony. So let's just see where that balcony is going. Oh, we've gone too far now. Let's just do that. Right, click that. Make sure you get the right grip point. So we want to go back to about there. And then on our top limit, we want to keep bringing that top limit down a little bit. And then we have the actual slice, if we do it properly. Just be careful which grip points you're clicking on. We now, if we go to a top view, we now have the actual slice through our balcony. So if we click back on the point cloud, we now have these options to do section lines. So what we'll do, we can do the entire cross section or just the perimeter. We'll use the current layer, which will be our standard layer. And what I'll do is I'm just going to whack this up to be accurate, and I'm going to halve the minimum line length, and then we'll just see what it's going to create. Won't take too long. Obviously, I have upped the intensity, so actually we might want to change those settings. So we'll do settings. We'll just create it, so we'll accept them. So now what we can do in here is we can go to our point cloud manager and just turn it off, and then we can see what lines we're left with. So we can turn it back on, so we can sort of see, right, well, these ones in here we're not interested in. We're not interested in you. We're not interested in you. We're not really too bothered about any of these lines in here, so maybe my accuracy was too high. It's gone a little bit crazy. But we can very quickly filter out what we don't want. And at least then we have some basic lines, which we can then use to draw our 3-point arc over. The other thing that we can do if we select that is if we didn't want to delete that. If we turn our point cloud back on, we've now got our lines, but we want the centers of our tube. So if we click the point cloud again, we've now got the option in here to do center lines. So if I hover over the tube, you see it might take me a couple of goes for it to find the whole thing. We can do that. We can do that. And we can do that. And then if we turn the point cloud manager off again, we've got the center lines of our tubes. We've got the basics of the balcony, so we've got the center lines, we've got the edges of our steel. And we'll just turn that back on, and we can still use that as an overlay, but you can see in there, those are our steels. That's the center line of our tubes. And that's what we can do within the point cloud. Okay, so the last little bit we're going to look at, just to finish off, we're going to look at just some advanced steel tips and tricks. We've obviously extracted the lines in here, but they're a little bit messy for what we want to do. They're never going to be perfect. So I'm turning the point cloud off, and I'm just going to put my UCS on the end or the midpoint of one of these lines, and then I'm going to turn my 2D snaps on, and that will mean that anything I model gets locked to that plane. And what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to do some AutoCAD sort of construction in here. We can see where the wall is, we can see where our balcony stops. and then I can just start trimming the lines away and just tidying up what we want. To make it a little bit easier, I'm going to create a new layer. I'm just going to call it construction, and just change the color so that we can actually see what's going on. We haven't got loads of lines on the same layer, because what we need to do is sort of create the outskirts of our balcony so that we can model some new balustrade or some glass in there. And what I want to do is just find the midpoints of these steels, because obviously the point cloud isn't going to find the midpoint, but it's given me the two edges. So I can pick some perpendicular points in here. Just so that we can find the rough center lines of these beams. So we'll put ourselves back on that construction layer, and then we can pick the midpoint of these horizontal lines, and that's going to give us a decent center line for these beams. So we do still have the point cloud in there, so we can use the points from the point cloud. We can still use that as a reference. And then we can obviously put some more AutoCAD lines in there just to start trimming these things away. It's just a case of using the point cloud when we need to, turning things on, turning things off. Helps in here if we actually put that line onto the correct layer so we can see what is our new construction. And then because it's a curved balcony, I do want to try and get a constant curve in there, so we're just going to use a 3-point arc, but we can keep referencing the point cloud to make sure that we do have everything as accurate as possible. So you can see out there, we can see the line, we can see I'm a bit of a way off, but this is where the nearest snap is quite useful. And then it's just a case of turning the point cloud on and off, using what we've got, changing our lines to suit what we need. Forgotten to trim that last little line. You can see now we're actually getting the center lines of the steels. Now the center line that the AutoCAD command extracted from the point cloud, it did it in 2 parts. So we'll just make that left one there just one line. And again, we can then put those on the construction layer. So we now have the beginning points of our steel balcony. I've obviously still got one more beam to do, but I think everyone gets the idea. But what we can do now is there are some advanced steel commands where we can convert lines into beam. The command is beam from line. So we select the 2 center lines of our tubes. Bit naughty from me, I didn't actually change myself back to the standard layer. So now those tubes are on the wrong layer. So whatever layer we're on, that's what the system will put them on. If we were on the standard layer, so we'll just go and turn ourselves back to the standard layer. I'm just going to repeat this with my beam from line. Do we want to delete the lines? Well, in this instance, no, we don't want to delete the line because it took us a while to actually create that line. can then make our channel. Although I put the columns on the right layer, I didn't actually set myself to the standard layer. And then we've got the center line of our beams. Select both of those. Again, beam from line command. You always want to use the beam from line command. Change the system line positioning. So we can see with those extracted lines that they were a bit too wide, because we kept those lines from the point cloud in there. But that now gives us, okay, it's at the wrong sort of height. I haven't got the scan completely level properly, but you can see that we've taken that point cloud data and it now gives us a starting point for our balcony, so we can actually start modeling new railings. The last little bit is a few seconds introduction. There are options out there, and there are add-ins and third-party plugins that will actually convert the point cloud into advanced steel objects automatically. So what they can do is they can read the advanced steel databases, and then they look at the cross sections of the steel inside the point cloud, and then if it falls within a certain region, it will then draw the beams in. There are plugins available for AutoCAD and Revit. The example I'm showing, they're not the only ones out there. The example I'm showing in a second is the plugin developed by Faro, and it's the one shown in Revit, but the technology works in a similar way in the AutoCAD environment. So you can see here we've got the point cloud, sorry, that is the AutoCAD environment on this one. And then this is the Revit one, where the system is picking up the beam section sizes, and then we can start to extend those bits. So what I will do, I'll just, because that is almost blink and you miss it, we'll just go back over that. So you can see the point clouds there. It's reading that cross-section information and then picking out the sections, and the same in here. We're sort of saying there's a beam in this area, and then it will pick up on the points and then look to create your model for you. Obviously, please reach out to the third-party plugin people to explore that kind of workflow in more detail. And that is nearly us at the hour mark, so that takes us to the end of today's session. I will keep this screen up for a few minutes if anyone does have any questions. As with the webinar this morning, there is a handout for this which has got all my contact information on. So if you do have a question and you can't quite type it out in time today, you can obviously reach out to me directly. But I will keep the session running for a few more minutes if anyone does have any questions. Okay, so one question come in. How do you level the point cloud data relative to the UCS in advanced steel? What you actually need to do there, Rob, is you can reset the UCS in recap, and that will reset the UCS when you bring it into advanced steel. Or I suppose you could move the point cloud. You could put some AutoCAD construction in and then start moving it, trying to move it inside the AutoCAD environment, but it's easier to do it in the recap environment, because you can click a corner point, you can click an X direction, a Y direction, and a Z direction, and that will then reset the UCS for that point cloud. Okay, well, I can't see any more questions coming in, so thank you very much, everyone, for joining me this afternoon. We do have one more Advanced Steel webinar this side of Christmas. It's happening Friday at 4 o'clock, where I'm going to be looking at the UCS tab and some tips and tricks with the UCS tab. So hopefully you can join me then. And once again, thank you very much for joining me today.